Hello and welcome to the Allplane Podcast. In each episode, we're going to be talking with an aviation industry professional in order to learn more about specific aspects of this industry. Today's guest is Sal Artigas. Sal is a commercial pilot, and until just a few weeks ago, he was a senior first officer for Flybe, flying a Bombardier Dash 8 Q400 out of Belfast in Northern Ireland. Prior to that, Sal spent some years in the Maldives flying turboprops between the different islands. But he is also an aviation entrepreneur. When he was studying to get his pilot license, he founded a helicopter tour company in his hometown of Barcelona, a business that he later sold to a larger helicopter operator. In addition to flying planes, Sal is also a YouTuber. His Sal Pilot YouTube channel gets hundreds of thousands of visits, and his videos of airport approaches are particularly popular. So, without further ado, let me welcome our guest today. Hello, Sal, how are you?
I'm very good. A lot of free time these days, Mikael.
You were flying for Flybe until last month when unfortunately the airline was stopped, not just because of the pandemic, but also because of other underlying financial issues. But we'll talk about this later. Let's start by looking at what does it take to become a commercial pilot? What was your path to becoming a first officer on a turboprop?
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone. My name is Sal, and as Mikael said, I've been flying for the last few years. Aviation is something I would say you carry on since you're born. Basically, initially I wanted to be funny enough, I wanted to be a train driver. But one day my granddad took me to the airport to see planes taking off and landing, and then, well, that was it. Love at first sight. So since then, I've always been interested in aviation, pretty much like you, Mikael. The passion was always there. I always like to take planes as a passenger. Just any excuse was good enough to take a plane there. And unfortunately, it's a very costly career. So a few years ago, I didn't have the means to be able to fund this because it's, as I said, it's a very expensive career because you basically, there's a theoretical bit and then there's a practical bit. So the theoretical bit is not much different from any other university career, which is just attending classes, understanding what you're studying, and basically go through a few exams. In the European aviation, you need to pass 14 subjects in order to get your commercial license. And for a theoretical bit, then you go for the practical bit, which is the expensive one. So because obviously you have to pay to fly a little aircraft. Usually it's a little aircraft because it's the cheapest one. It's the cheapest way to get through the whole hours you need to build up in order to reach the minimum. I believe at the time it was 170 hours. So every hour is in Europe is pretty expensive. 120 euros and 180 euros between that range of price, which in America is a lot more cheaper, I would say. So
per hour.
That's why it's a very costly
industry. We're talking the cost per hour.
Yeah, cost per hour.
Where did you study this? I mean, if you want to become a pilot, where do you go?
If you just want to become a pilot, my recommendation to everyone who's not very sure of a big investment or doesn't have the means, you can have 2 licenses to start with. You can have the very light aircraft, the ultralight aircraft, which is just an aircraft that you can have in your own grass strip. You don't need many licenses. You need a few, but it's quite cheap, relatively cheap to have. And the other one is a private pilot's license, which you can get in any flying school in worldwide. I'm talking about Spain because that was my case. I studied in Spain in a place called Sabadell, and that was the airfield where I studied. It was a flying school called Top Fly that unfortunately went bankrupt before I finished. And then I did my theoretical bits with Top Fly. I started flying, and then you do the single engine, which is basically the cheapest bit. And then the last bit of your practical career is on a multi-engine aircraft, which happens to be a propeller aircraft with 2 engines. And then you practice the basically you practice the IFR flight, which is the instrumental flying rules flights, which is the ones that you can get into a cloud or follow procedures that are not, you're not visual with the terrain necessarily. And you did a few more instruments than when you fly visual. Flying visual basically is you take your map with you, you take your Cessna or your Piper, wherever, and you take it to the air and then just follow the roads, just follow the rivers, the coastlines, you identify the towns, and then you just
like the
make
pioneers,
yourself a map. Yes.
like 1920s pioneers. And why?
Yeah.
How did you end up in turboprops in the Bombardier Q400? Is there a specific choice you made, or is it something? Is a set of circumstances that led you to focus on this type of aircraft?
Basically, the light aircraft that you fly in the flying school, then it's sort of a generic title you get there. It's called the single engine piston, and I believe it's up to a certain weight and certain amount of passengers. But I think, I'm not very sure of this, but I think it's any aircraft after or above the weight of 5,700 kilos or 19 passengers, something like that, then you need a specific type rating for the aircraft. So you get your commercial license. That's the generic one. That's, let's say, in terms of driving a car, would be you pass your theoretical bit and then you pass your practical bits with your driving license. So the aviation would be the same. You pass those bits and then you get your private license. With your private license, which is the one you get for driving your car, you cannot make money out of it. So that's why it's called the private one, because you can take your plane and fly yourself, but you cannot make money on that license. If you want to make money with your license, you need the commercial license, which then would be the taxi driver license sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
So then when you get the commercial pilot's license is when you can start making money out of it. You can...
but you can apply to any to an airline.
Exactly. Yes. Whenever you get your commercial license, then you basically start applying to any other airline, or if you're lucky enough to have your own plane, you can build up your hours there. But that's the most critical bit and the step where most of the pilots fell off and never stand up again, because it's quite difficult, because you just jump out of the flying school with the minimum hours you need to get into the market. But no airlines look at you because you don't have the experience, but they don't give you the chance to get the experience. So it's a little bit, that's the most critical bit, I would say. If you get over that bit, then you should be fine, more or less.
There's a bit of a catch.
So to me, unfortunately for me, that I finished my license in 2011, and that was the here in Spain we had the big crisis that we're still carrying from 2008, where airlines were still going down a little bit. The options were very limited, so that's why I started up the helicopters company with my mate from the flying school. He was a helicopter pilot and I was a plane pilot, but we were going to a few subjects together, like meteorology or procedures and stuff like that, because it's the same. Performance obviously is different, so he was studying in a separate class for helicopter performance, but in a few others it was a common subject. So I started up that because the high-end market was going up in Spain, but there was no plane pilot jobs anywhere pretty much for 4 years. So it took me a while to get my first job. The first airline I got a positive answer from was in the Maldives. So basically I took it, and then the company had Bombardier Dash Q200s and Q300s. So is it just a common rating?
Let me stop you here 1 second, because we're gonna get back to the Maldives.
Yeah,
wonderful place. But first, I just would like to dig a little bit deeper into the helicopter thing. So you founded a company, if I understood correctly, that you provided helicopter tours around Barcelona. You didn't do the flying because you are not a helicopter pilot. Your friend was, your co-founder was.
Yeah.
And what type of helicopter did you fly, and what type of flights did you do with this company?
Yeah, this company, we started off with Robinson 44, which is the the Cessna 172 of the helicopters has 4 seats, including the pilot seat. So it's a 3 passenger seat and the pilot. It's a single pilot air helicopter with 3 passenger seats, let's say. And it's I'm not sure of this, but I'm pretty aware that it's one of the most sold aircraft in history because it's very reliable and it's been there forever. Probably before I was born, the Robinson 44 was already flying. It was more or less cheap to operate, and it had a good performance. So my colleague was a helicopter pilot. He was flying the passengers because he needed to build up his hours as well. So that was a win-win. And he took my tourism management experience because I did a tourism management degree before becoming a pilot. As I said, I needed to get save some money for that and make sure that's what I wanted to do. And
you were doing the paperwork and stuff.
Basically, I was the the grumpy one in the office. Yes.
Okay.
And one of the best products I sold, it was here in north coast of Barcelona. There's where my hometown is, El Masnou. It's just north of Barcelona, not too far. And basically, I knew it's actually worldwide known now because we've got an NBA player called Ricky Rubio, and he's put El Masnou in the map for all of us.
Okay,
so,
it's about 10 miles, right? 15 kilometers north.
Yeah, and there's a region where we grow up a lot of strawberries, and also we have wine. Then I knew someone in a hometown next door to hometown, and it's called Aleya. Alta Aleya is the vineyard I was in contact with, and I proposed them the chance to do some helicopter tours, landing there, and then the passengers could get off the helicopter like Hollywood stars, do a 4x4 tour around
in the vineyards. So you were landing in the vineyards.
In the vineyards, yeah. And then they would end up with a lunch overlooking the Mediterranean Sea and Barcelona at the far end, and obviously getting very happy with the wine tasting.
Sounds great.
And then flying back with the helicopter.
Still working, this company?
No, I sold the company to a bigger helicopters company called BG Helicopters. So they have now... when I left, they had 4 helicopters. They had a Jet Ranger based in Tenerife, in Adeje, and they had the Eurocopter AS 350, which is a big machine. And then they had the Robinson 22 and the Robinson 44.
Okay.
I was missing the flying bit. Obviously, I was doing. I was in charge of all the airspace and quotations that obviously had to put all my aviation knowledge into it as I was studying for becoming a pilot. So I did all that all together.
I guess you were getting to fly the helicopter from time to time, though. Although you were
yes, I was the one actually. Every time there was a spare seat, I was there.
Okay, and then so then you became you got your commercial pilot license and you moved to the Maldives, right?
Yeah.
And that was in 2014. Okay.
Yeah, that was August. Yes.
And you work for Maldivian, which is one of.
It's the flag carrier, actually. It's the governmental airline there.
That does regional flights in the islands. So you're connecting the main hub in Malé, right?
That was Malé.
Malé to all the different islands, all the resorts in the different islands, right?
Yeah. And we also had a destination in India. That was the Dash 8 bits, because then as I was there, we welcomed a 320 and a 321 as well, an Airbus. And so the oldest pilots moved on to the Airbus, but I was still kept in the Dash because I was quite new.
So you were flying, typically your flights would be from Malé all the way to all the different islands. Would be, how long would these flights be? Half an hour? 40 minutes?
The shortest one was 8 minutes.
8 minutes. Wow.
Yes. And the longest one was off to India. Obviously, that was nearly, depending on the winds, we could make it in 1 hour, 45 minutes flying, obviously, all the time over the water. So,
what destination in India were you flying to? In the south?
That was Tiruvananthapuram.
Okay.
Which shortly known as Trivandrum.
Yes. I know. I've been there, actually.
It's in the southwest coast of India. Yeah, not far. India's very
near the tip of India, yeah.
Yeah, not far from Cochin.
Mm-hmm. And so how is it like to live the pilot life, an expat pilot life in the Maldives? You were, I guess, based in the capital, right?
Yeah, well, not really. I was based in the island where the airport was built in, because Maldives is a very, very, very strange country. To start with, it has around 1,200 islands.
Mm.
The the actual country is made up of just islands. There's no mainland. So the capital is about 2 kilometers times 1.5. So it's like 3 or 4 square kilometers just. So that's the capital. It's the most congested capital in the world, because 350,000 people live there.
Yes,
not a neighborhood without any building. So it's very, very congested. Mm-hmm. So the airport was built in a nearby island called Hulumale. So Hulumale was just initially a runway on its own, built on top of an atoll. The point in the Maldives was 1.8 meters, so I'm as high as a country.
Yes,
pretty much.
Yeah.
You're a little bit taller than me, Mikel, so you can say you're taller than a whole country. So the airport island was called Hulumale, and that was initially just a runway with a few, obviously, hangars around. And then as the time went, they started gaining claiming terrain to the water. Mm-hmm. So they started building up. If you go and use Google Earth and you put the satellite view, it's a very interesting place to have a look, because it's it's very interesting. Now initially they were giving me my reporting time. They said I used to have to come to the crew room 1 hour before the flight, and the night before they're always calling me, Salvador, you've got ferry time tomorrow, 10:15 in the morning. So they were giving me the ferry time I should take from Male to get to
ferry time. Sorry, ferry time. It's an actual ship, a boat that would take you from your island to the
from Male to get to the airport island. So they were giving me a ferry time to get to work. So everybody there used to take boats for everything. But now they built a bridge between the airport island and Male. I haven't been there yet, so I haven't seen that. But so at the time I was there was a ferry connecting the airport with Male every 5 minutes.
Okay. And so you took this ferry whenever you were told that you had to be on duty?
They gave me the ferry time, but I was living in the same airport island, because, as I said, they claimed some land to the ocean, and they started making new apartments because they couldn't expand Male anymore. It was literally congested. As if you take an image from Google, you'll see how congested it is. It's very visual.
I'll check it out, definitely.
Yeah, so I was just taking a bus from Hulumale, the north tip of the airport, to the airport. In between those buildings and the runway, there was a lagoon that they were using for the seaplanes.
Ah, true. There are a lot of seaplanes in the Maldives as well. Yeah. I guess there are islands that don't have a runway, right? And resorts where people you can only fly there by seaplane. But you were flying, I guess, to some of the larger atolls that had.
Basically, at the time I was there was another regional carrier that was using ATRs called Villa Air. Now it's become Manta Air. And Maldivian, which was my company, didn't have any seaplanes, but now they have at least 5 or 6. By the time I left, they had 4, but I believe they have more than 8 now. So it's basically an expanding business. Maldivian was covering the furthermost destinations from Male, the ones that were unable to be reached by seaplane, because our longest flight was crossing the equator, Male to an island called Gan. It was an ex-British military base where the planes used to stop there on their way to Australia. So that was quite a long runway, but that flight was about 1 hour and 30 minutes crossing the equator line. So that on a twin otter, it was a little bit, it would have been a little bit long. So basically, the flights we were doing with Maldivian were the farther destinations that couldn't be reached by seaplane. That's why Maldivian was built, because they couldn't make it on a twin otter for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm. So you feel
the dash is twice as fast as the twin otter, more or less.
You flew Q200s and Q300s, right?
Yeah, the same day you could actually fly them both, and start with a Q200 and finish on a Q300, or the other way around, or fly them
Uh-huh.
have three changes or.
And the difference is basically the size of the aircraft?
Yeah, the Q200 had 37 seats and the Q300 had 50 seats.
Okay.
There's an extra 13 seats, and the performance it was exactly the same engine. Q200 had slightly better performance because obviously it's the same engine with less weight, so it was a little bit faster.
By the way, I take the chance here to say that on Allplane.tv we do have a guest post written by Sal a few years ago where he talks about the experience about when he was flying. You wrote it, I think, when you were still in the Maldives.
Yeah, actually, yes. Now that you mentioned this,
yeah, I remember it was a popular blog post, and there's some information there about the different airports you can come across in the Maldives and a bit of the pilot life there. So anyone interested in this can go check. I'm gonna post it anyway. I'm gonna post the link on the write up of this call. But just I wanted to mention it now. How long did you spend in the Maldives?
From because I did my type rating in August 2014 in Oslo. That was a whole month, which was the type rating. I think I didn't finish explaining this, but basically type rating is you get the generic license with a commercial pilot's license, but then if you go to complicated aircraft or heavy aircraft at 5,700 kilos, you need a type rating, which is basically you learn the exact systems for that aircraft, basically, and how to handle it. Because all the aircrafts, obviously, as you might be aware of, it's not the same to fly a 380 than a Dash, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
So the type rating lasted for about a month, and then you do some obviously technical reviews, and you learn the aircraft systems, and then you end up with the simulator. So once I finished that, I moved to the Maldives in September 2014, and then I was there until November 2015.
And then you moved to halfway across the world to Northern Ireland, right?
Yes, this weird accent.
You flew to you basically you moved to Northern Ireland to take a job at Flybe. So how was it like? You jump onto this chance to just move back to Europe. Then you change aircraft, right? You move to the Q400, but still same family of aircraft, just a bit larger.
Yeah, the powerful sister of the four Q series. The Q100, 200, and 300 is the same type rating. So you just need to learn the little differences between all three. But the Q400 was conceived as an aircraft that initially was expected to be having the same type rating. So if you jump into a Q400 cockpit, you'll see the power levers, condition levers, flaps, and all that is pretty exactly as it was in the, as we call it, the Baby Dash. The Baby Dash is any of the other three. When I say Baby Dash, I'm referring to the Q100, 200, and 300. But then Bombardier realized that it was a much more powerful aircraft. The Q400 is a beast. Talking about propellers, it's probably one of the few propeller aircraft that has similar performance than a jet. So the Q400 was very, very interesting for regional carriers like such as Flybe itself, or Air Canada, or places, or even Widerøe in Norway. It's the perfect aircraft for thinner routes where you are not going to be putting an Airbus or a 737 or even an Embraer. The region of 1 hour flights, the Dash is half of the cost of flying a Dash for 1 hour is probably around half of what an Airbus would consume for 1 hour flight, including the takeoff and the approach and all the consumption. So the Dash Q400 has 78 seats, but flies not as fast as a jet, obviously, but within 1 hour range, the difference would be just 5 minutes compared to an Airbus.
Yeah, because you were flying out of Belfast mainly to...
My base, was Belfast City Airport, which is the smaller airport in Belfast. Belfast has two airports. Both were used in the World War.
The George Best, is it the...
They call it recently. They renamed it as George Best Belfast City Airport. A very short name for a big massive airport like Belfast City.
Mm.
The runway is very small and it's a small terminal, but it was, I think it's for 3 years in a row now, it was named the most convenient airport in Europe, top airport in the UK in terms of being close to the city center, being easy to use, good security, screens, no lines, and very convenient. Honestly, it was just 3 miles from Belfast city center.
What's your professional routine in Northern Ireland? Is it very different from what you used to have in the Maldives in terms of number of sectors flown every day, all other aspects of it?
Yeah, it was different because the Maldivian civil aviation had a different rules compared to the European EASA ones, which is in terms of flying a certain amount of hours. Your maximum hours you're allowed to fly per month, per day, every 3 days, every week. You have different limits of hours you can fly. And the European one is a little bit more restrictive compared to the Maldives. So the Maldives, we could easily fly 6 sectors a day. A sector is just from A to point B. So if we go from Belfast to Manchester and back, that's considered to be 2 legs or 2 sectors. A typical day in Belfast would be 4 sectors. That's the standard, would say. If you were lucky, you were just doing 2 sectors, or if you are unlucky, as we were quite unlucky in the summer, I was 6 sectors, or a double London City airport. It was that was the longest day we had in Belfast. It was a triple whatever, Leeds, Bradford, Manchester, Birmingham, or combined with all them. We could do East Midlands, then back to Belfast, then Edinburgh, back to Belfast, and then Leeds and back to Belfast. That would be one of the most tiring days. So
always
I would say 6 sectors or a double London City airport day in Belfast would be the longest, and in the Maldives the longest day I did, it was 9 sectors.
And always back to base. So you were always
not in the Maldives. In the Maldives we're doing triangles. We're doing I'm gonna say island names. I know it's not gonna sound very good to you, but we're doing Male, Hanimadu, then to Karadu, and then back to Male. So sometimes we're doing triangles.
Okay.
So Kadu Kudu and then back to Male, or 4 sectors doing that was quite of a common one. It was doing Male, Hanimadu, Darabandu, Hanimadu, Male, for example. So we're doing 4 sectors away from base, and the last one was back to base. Yeah, it was depending on the needs of the market, or Christmas time was very busy in the Maldives.
And you did also some flying in Scandinavia, also while at Flybe. You were
Yeah, I was lucky enough to Flybe had a mini operation for Scandinavian Airlines. So the planes were painted in Scandinavian colors. It was a ATR. I think at the end it was 5 ATRs based in Arlanda in Stockholm. Yes. And it was a wet lease contract with Scandinavian Airlines, but it was operated by Flybe.
But it was an ATRs?
It was ATRs, yes. Okay. But the Swedish rules say that pilots are entitled to 3 weeks off in the summer. So every summer we're bringing a Dash 8 from the UK empty up to Stockholm, and then we're flying for them just to cover the lack of pilots for the summer.
Okay, so you were still flying with the Dash 8.
Yes. Okay. So we're bringing an extra Dash 8 painted in Flybe colors, operated for Scandinavian Airlines. That was quite funny to see the passengers jumping on the planes. Like, I thought I was on a Scandinavian, and then on the passenger announcement we're saying welcome to the Scandinavian Airlines flight to Stockholm, and then there were people who were even more lost.
So and then you were flying domestic in Sweden with these planes?
The summer because we were doing that every summer, but we're setting the base in different places because Stockholm was quite expensive. So the summer I went there, our base was in Vasa, in north of Finland. So we're in the west coast of Finland.
Yes.
So it's a Finnish city called Vasa. Everyone spoke Swedish there.
Yeah.
Very close to the Swedish border, just across So yeah, we're basically doing every day. I have to say, it was an easy operation. I could do that again and again, no problem. It was Vaasa, Stockholm, back to Vaasa.
So
And some days if the ATRs were going broken, we were doing some of the ATR routes. So I managed to do Stockholm Helsinki one day, and I managed as well to do Stockholm Visby twice in one day.
So you were replacing ATRs with your Dash 8 whenever needed to fill the gaps in the SAS.
Yeah, it was just basically fill the operation that was left out without pilots, basically, because the aircraft weren't the problem. The aircraft were okay in numbers, but it was just the pilots. We hadn't enough pilots just for the summer. So basically, we had to fly the Q400 around, and it was funny because the Dash is much faster than the ATR. So every time we were sometimes leaving 10 minutes late out of Vaasa for whatever reason, and then still making it 10 early into Stockholm because the flight times were set for the ATR. So basically, yeah.
And then Flybe, unfortunately, has been in the headlines for quite some time. It's not something new. Let's put it this way, like the announcement that was stopping, it was not an unexpected thing because it had been in the headlines already for some time about this very critical financial situation. There was a takeover as well by some investors. I think there was an Irish group. And there was
it was Stobart or Stobart Capital. I don't know the exact terms, but it was basically Stobart, Virgin, and Capital Group behind. So it was a conjunction of three capitals joining together to buy Flybe.
There was even talk that they could become a sort of feeder for Virgin Atlantic because there was.
We were actually on the path to become. We were officially called Connect Airways. And we had pins and everything, but we were expecting like in America, for example, you can fly with Horizon Air, but the Dash AQ400s for Horizon Air are painted in Alaska colors. So it would be sort of a similar thing. We would be Connect Airways officially, but our livery would have been Virgin Connect.
But you would be connecting with Virgin where?
Yes,
Virgin...
The plan was to become Virgin. So the Dash 8 would have been painted in Virgin colors. So effectively, for the general public, we would have been Virgin. The main goal was to connect, to help connectivity to the main hubs that Virgin had at the time, which were Manchester, Gatwick, and Heathrow. And I believe Gatwick is not going to be in the list anymore.
Yeah, well, actually, that's actually one of the things that I was wondering, because it makes sense on paper, because actually Virgin Atlantic is one of the few long-haul airlines of a respectable size that doesn't have a feeder operation. It's mostly point to point. But
we were their feeder for a good, at least that I'm aware of, a good 3 years. So we had code-share agreements with them, and that's why Flybe we were doing the Aberdeen Heathrow and the Edinburgh Heathrow. I've been lucky enough to fly both of them, and it was really interesting.
But that's the thing. I mean, Heathrow has a very limited capacity because of the constraints in capacity right now. I'm not sure how this connection thing would work at Heathrow. Gatwick and Manchester possibly fine, but Heathrow, if you want to put in more connections there with the smaller planes, it's a bit of a challenge, isn't it?
That's what I was telling. That was one of the most discussed subjects in the takeover thing. Well, when you fly, you have a lot of time to talk and sit, and obviously you're with your colleagues and discuss things. And I remember talking about this so many times because at the time of the takeover, apparently Delta Airlines had placed an order for 70-odd C-Series. And apparently they were deployed to Delta quite quickly. So that's all rumors. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but the rumor was that Delta were receiving the C-Series that quickly that they weren't capable of training the pilots and the crew and, set all the things you need for a new aircraft arrival quickly enough to actually deploy the aircrafts on the routes. So they were talking, as Virgin is partly owned by Delta, the talks were there to bring some C-Series for Flybe. especially for those routes where you would need a lot more capacity, because having a slot into Heathrow is difficult enough, as you said. Bringing a Dash 8 with only 78 passengers is quite of a loss, or that's what I think, at least.
Yeah, every single seat.
If I had a slot in Heathrow, I would bring the biggest aircraft I could bring in. If your main goal is to fit a bigger aircraft, so obviously Belfast used to have Gatwick route for a while, Belfast City Airport. Flybe, we used to have it on an Embraer, and it was rammed up to the roof every single day, overbooked every single day. But then Aer Lingus came in, I guess, backed up by BA, came into Belfast City and started doing that route. So our loads went down dramatically, and then we had to sell the slots in order to keep up flying Flybe planes around. So Flybe sold the slots at Gatwick for about 20 million. And that was the slot that they used for Belfast City Airport. So the Gatwick route was pretty much given to Aer Lingus all of a sudden. But then Aer Lingus, they flew it for a while and then they stopped. So the Belfast City Airport Gatwick route was not there anymore. So they were talking about Virgin doing that, because honestly it was a very busy route. So that was another question we had. If Virgin was to take us over, the Flybe would probably fly the C Series to Gatwick. That would have been a good idea, I think. But obviously, I wasn't there to see the numbers, so it's easy to give my opinion without seeing the numbers.
Yeah, well, it's clear that it's not going to happen now.
Instead of that, we were doing London City Airport 6 times a day.
Actually, London City, it's good you mention it, because I would like to say as well that Sal is also a very popular YouTuber, and you can find him under the name Sal Pilot on SAL space Pilot on YouTube, and some of your videos have got close to 1 million views. Particularly a popular one, it's an approach to London City Airport, right?
Yeah, that was. It's like a hate-love feeling with London City, because it was a special airport. Not many pilots, I think, they can say they've been to all London airports, because usually if you fly into Heathrow, it's because you fly a big plane, or if you fly to London City, it's because you fly a small plane. But in my case, I've been to all of them. Been to, the main ones, obviously. I haven't been to Norton Hill, Farnborough, or the other one in the south. I can't remember, Manston.
Southend?
Yeah. There's another one, I can't remember now. Well, it's basically used by private jets and stuff like that. But I've been to Luton, Gatwick, London City, Heathrow, and Stansted. So Flybe is quite a versatile airline. But London City was, as I say, unfortunately from Belfast, it was quite of a long flight. So if you were doing a double London City, we used to hate it. Because it's a very long flight, especially in winter. Because if you were doing the afternoon rotation, that would have been a double London City. You would check in about 11:30 in the, I call it morning. Some people call it afternoon already. And you would be back in base by 9:30 if you were lucky with the slots. Because sometimes it's a very congested airspace. London airspace is very congested.
And is it very challenging to land at London City?
Yeah, it is as challenging that only Flybe used to allow captains only to land. So technically, I haven't landed there.
Okay.
I'd say it's allowed, but I'm not going to say more than this.
what is clear is you took very spectacular video, and you actually.
I was enjoying the views.
Yeah, you can. That's one thing for sure. You've got nice views getting there, and you've got quite a few approaches on film on your YouTube channel. So if you go to Sal's YouTube channel, you will find approaches to quite a few airports. Lots of video shot from the cockpit there. What are your favorite airports in terms of approaches? Because of, I don't know, because of convenience, or because of you can say because of convenience, or because of the beauty of the approach. What would be your top 5 in terms of approaches?
Well, approaches. There's a few approaches I love. Some of them, obviously, I haven't flown them. I mean, I would love to go to Innsbruck. Flybe used to go to Innsbruck for a while doing ski charters in winter. It's one of those plays you every year you try to call people at operations and try to tell them, is there any Innsbruck left for anybody? No.
You
Obviously,
haven't
everyone
done
wants.
it yet, though. You haven't
No,
done it.
I haven't done Innsbruck, even though it's in my wish list. But definitely in my top 5 would be London City, runway 09. Runway
Mhm.
09 is the one that faces towards the east, and it's the one that from Belfast you fly from the north, and then you fly. Just to make it simple, you fly from Belfast to the Isle of Man, from the Isle of Man to Wallasey, which is in Liverpool, and then you go to a couple of waypoints called Listo and Pedig, and after Pedig, more or less, you go to Pedig would be not far from Cambridge. So then you continue flying to the east coast of England, and then you start flying at a very low level. And a lot of people after landing in London City, a lot of passengers were asking why we made it to the east coast of England. London is much more west. It's because we had to go a really low level to allow all the traffic going into Heathrow. As I said, it's a very congested airspace. So the approach didn't make sense at all because we're making so many extra miles. We're making all the way. So you could see Stansted on the right-hand side coming in from the north. Then we're making it to the east coast of England. And then we're basically following the River Thames at somewhere in between 6,000 and 3,000 feet. So once there, then if you were going to runway 09, which is the one that always draws a smile on your face when you're hearing runway use 09, then you're like, yes, good views today. Then we're flying south of Greenwich Park, and you can see that on my videos Michael Rose mentioned before. That's the 091, the one that it's most watched on my channel.
Yeah, I'll put a link to your YouTube channel on the transcript of the.
Yeah, there's many other videos online, but mine at least says the highlights of the approach. Basically, then you fly westbound towards River Thames, south of it, and then you take a right-hand turn over the London Eye and the Parliament buildings, and basically just follow the river back to the Docklands. And I just fly over the Tower of London. You can see the city of London on the left. And then you fly over all the big buildings.
It's a panoramic
Canary
Wharf of London.
Yeah, no, and because of those buildings and the Canary Wharf that are very, very tall, and the airport is right after those buildings, then you just basically drop without power almost on the plane. So that was a very tricky approach as well. But as a first officer, it was very, very difficult to get distracted. You could see the captain sweating because in Flybe's case, at least, we couldn't fly the approach with an autopilot, so we had to fly manually. The approach had to be flown manually without flight directors as well. It had to be flown old school, raw data as they call it. Mm-hmm. Flight directors is the little purple cross you get in the primary flight display. So basically, you just follow the cross. It's a lot easier. But if you don't have those bars, it becomes a lot more trickier, to be fair, especially when you weren't seeing the airport. It was winter, storms, stuff like that. It was very tricky. I've seen really experienced captains sweat a lot on that approach. It was very tricky. It was quite difficult. Some of the training captains let me fly it sometimes. The approach, I never landed, I have to admit. But the training captains could allow senior first officers to fly the approach.
So definitely go and check out the YouTube channel, and you will find this approach to London City and many other approaches. So what's next? Because now you are on basically like everyone in this industry, kind of waiting for the storm to pass. What other projects you have in store? You're looking for other airlines to fly for at the moment?
Yeah, unfortunately, I had a couple of as soon as Flybe went bankrupt, I started applying to airlines that I was looking. Let's say airlines that I always liked, or simply airlines that I liked the aircraft they were flying, because I sort of feel I've done my bits and pieces in the propeller aviation world. I don't dislike the Flybe, the Dash 8 Q400 or any of the Dash family, but I want to experiment flying a jet because it's quite of a different thing. I would like to try the long haul as well. I'm not sure if that would be my cup of tea, but I think I want to try it at some point in my career. Ideally, I would like to try it now, but obviously you have an idea and then life puts you in the other side of what your idea was. So basically, I had a couple of interviews line up after the collapse of Flybe, but obviously they started closing the borders up, so my interviews have been postponed until further notice.
So yeah,
but no, it will happen because now there's going to be a lot more pilots in the market, so it's going to be quite difficult, unfortunately.
In any case, if there are any airline managers here in the audience, just feel free to get in touch, and we can put you in touch with Sal.
So I've got 3,900 hours.
Yeah, very good. It's been great speaking with you, Salvador. We'll be following your YouTube channel. Hopefully soon with more approaches. I think you've got a backlog of old videos, right, to approach that you are now.
I've been recording loads of flights for the last 5 years or so, and I've been uploading one video per week or 2 or 3. So depending on I've got a lot more free time, but I just don't want to load them all of them at the same time because I think people like to watch one by one. Then
Good. So that's you're using your time.
What can I do? I like aviation, so I don't mind watching my videos and think of the good times with Flybe, which was a really great airline to work for.
We got to the point of basically wrapping up, calling off this very interesting conversation, and hopefully we're hoping to get you here on the podcast on some other occasion and get an update on your latest adventures and your latest videos and airport approaches.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to record more videos on another aircraft anytime soon. Hopefully not too far in time. Thanks very much, Mikael.
Yeah, thanks to you, and have a great day and stay safe.
You too. Stay safe and very away from the COVID.
Yep.